We're here now with a panel of local change makers in the community with their boots on the ground, addressing these issues in their own ways. So I'm really excited for the panelists to introduce themselves and tell me a little bit more about what they do. So let's start on this side.
My name is Getulio Gonzalez Military. I'm a community organizer and a student. I'm the lead of the Clean Buses for Healthy Niños campaign, which is essentially we're trying to transition all bus fleets in the state of Florida to electric. And, community organizing is just about getting the community involved in their local politics. So that's how I play my role against climate change.
Awesome, awesome.
My name is Jo Huckster. I am an assistant professor of environmental studies at Eckerd College, and I study public understanding of climate change, and I teach classes on climate change communication and environmental communication. So I work with students to help them take action on climate.
Awesome, awesome.
My name is Mallory Dimmitt, and I'm the CEO of the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation, and I lead a nonprofit organization that heads a collaborative campaign to protect this region-wide focus for the Florida Wildlife Corridor.
I'm Kathy Troutwine. I'm associate pastor at Trinity Presbyterian Church in Clearwater, Florida. We are what's known as a PCUSA Earth Care congregation, so we're very involved in trying to make a difference in the climate and in the environment. And we just recently installed a 391-panel solar system on our sanctuary and fellowship hall roofs.
Fantastic. So climate change is all around us. Why is it so difficult, though, for climate change to be something that people take action towards?
Yeah, so the climate change overall is terrifying, right? If you really understand and really dig into it, it's really scary. And it's a huge issue that takes a really long time to unfold. And it's becoming more and more obvious, but we've known about climate change. I mean, really, we understood about carbon dioxide causing increased temperatures in the atmosphere in the 1800s. So it's a long, slow issue. So the fact that it's really scary is something that when something is so scary and so big, we are psychologically sort of predisposed to back away from it and not want to think about it because we don't feel like we can solve it. When it's long and slow, we don't really assess long, slow risks very well. So a lot of the things about climate change make it something that psychologically we just don't perceive as risky.
Historically, when we think about climate change, a lot of the communication around those efforts is doom and gloom scenarios, and we're like, wagging our fingers at people. So, how are you helping students prepare to communicate about climate change in perhaps a different way?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is so important about effective climate change communication is giving people an idea of what a healthy future could look like. Because we tend to shy away from either futures that we can't imagine or futures that seem all about sacrifice. And a lot of the messaging around climate change has been, you're gonna have to give up this, you're gonna have to give up that, no more flying, no more eating meat. And what we haven't had is a lot of positive messages about what a cleaner, healthier, more just future will look like. And so we need more of those stories in order for people to feel like, oh, that's something I want to move towards rather than just be scared of.
Gotcha. Mallory, it sounds like you've done some amazing work as well, kind of having your boots on the ground. I'd love to hear more about how that contextualizes in all of this.
Yeah, well, our organization uses that same hope-based messaging to try to reach people about the many benefits of protecting a wildlife corridor. So we're really messaging about the need to keep the wildlife corridor connected for all the benefits, and that it reinforces that we are all connected. What happens in the headwaters and in the center part of the state affects our coasts. And we can't just be thinking about coastal areas. We've got to be thinking about the sort of larger network. So we do a lot of expeditions to help get the message out about the fact that there is this wildlife corridor, that it does still exist and the opportunity is still there to protect it. So I participated in 5 different expeditions across the state, totaling over 2,000 miles now. And we just did our first ever youth expedition with 3 teen trekkers about a year ago. And they're describing their home waters in their backyard and why it needs to be protected, to be that sort of voice for their peers, which is so wonderful. And so everywhere we go, we look at just, why people should care about protecting our wildlife habitat and what they can do in their own backyard.
So, Kathy, I'm really interested in, you had solar roofs installed in your church, and you're a leader for people of faith. Why is that?
Why? Because we're a church that's very involved in social justice issues, and we see care of the creation as both a social justice issue for the environment, but also for people, because people are very much affected by the environment. And if we, as a faith community, don't step up and try to make a difference and use the quote-unquote pulpit that we have to reach out, not just to people of faith, but other people in the community. So we're in a location that a lot of people pass our church all the time. So we see that installation as a way to promote to the community the installation of solar.
And so this is a pillar of the community, and the community members see this. What effect do you feel like that has on them?
Well, we see it both in our local community on publicizing solar, but also because our presbytery helped us get the panels. They are, as well as us, are going to use it to promote these within the churches, trying to get more congregations to go solar, and promoting that it's not just about saving money, which is always a good thing for a church, but also that it's about the environment.
I'd just like to build off that. I think faith-based organizations is like the perfect place to foment change in that way. I mean, think of what you can do. You can, on that land, you could probably put in a solar farm that impacts an entire community. So there's plenty of solutions out there for people who want to think creatively.
And Getulio, it sounds like you're working on a related project.
Yeah, actually, we collaborate with plenty of faith-based organizations. Basically, meeting people where they're at, right? If people are focused on, kitchen table issues, economic issues, that's what we lure them in with, and then I don't like using the word educate, but we create awareness around the resources that there's available to the community. For example, in West Tampa, energy burden is a very big issue. So we collaborated with a nonprofit organization at that church to, let them know that there are subsidies for weatherization programs and things of that nature. It's difficult, in predominantly Black and Brown communities to talk about climate change, because to a lot of the people that I work with, or, in the communities that I work in, it's something that they don't really think about on the day-to-day. As I said earlier, it's about, the kitchen table issues. If you can relate climate change to that, then they start caring. For example, energy burden or air quality and how it affects their children in academics. If you talk to them about sea level rise, that's some giant in the hilltop. But if you're saying, energy burden is affecting your electricity bill and you might end up evicted, and if you end up evicted, your neighborhood's going to end up gentrified, then they start like, okay, yeah, and as someone who's lived in West Tampa on and off for about 15 years, I've seen the identity of an entire community change over the years. So when you talk about that, then it becomes tangible. Okay, climate change is contributing to all these things in a sort of a domino effect or pattern, and you start caring.
And Mallory, I know we talked a little bit about expeditions and how they're a great device to immerse people in what the problem might be, or who solving the problem might help. Is there anything else that you do to augment some of those experiences?
Sure, because the Wildlife Corridor has so many different factions who care about it, and it's a very large area across 18 million acres of the state of Florida, and it's multifaceted. You can also really tailor to different audiences, right? So we talk a lot about the importance of agriculture in Florida. That is the working lands that are the connections in between the existing conservation lands, and keeping agriculture in agriculture, which some people might not think of as a mainline conservation strategy, but it's critically important for the future of the Wildlife Corridor. And when we talk to elected officials, we're also talking about the economic impact of our wild places, and the tourism and just our lifestyle and health benefits from them, and putting that into economic figures that help really quantify those benefits, and then look at the return on investment for protecting these lands for future generations.
Yeah, it sounds like something that speaks to a completely different demographic.
Yep.
If you present it in terms of ROI, people are like, oh,
That's right.
Nice to see what you're saying now. Yeah. So I'm interested, you all are local change makers at the forefront of addressing these problems. And I'm really interested in your level of optimism about where we're going with things and why it is what it is. So whoever wants to take the first.
Okay, I'll go ahead. No, I'm definitely feeling optimistic about it. I mean, you see what's happening at the federal level with the IRA, and it's not as much as we need or would like, but it's definitely historic, the amount of investment in renewables. So yeah, I definitely have hope for the future. It's just, making sure that these tactics and these programs are sustainable and, chip away at it, right? That's how change happens. It doesn't happen overnight.
So Getulio and I are really lucky in that we work with students and kids, and they will give you that hope because they are so excited to do the work. And I do see a lot of eco-anxiety and depression and even eco-grief amongst my students, but they want to work through that and make the change happen. So we all work through that together, and then we try to move on to those next steps. How can we make the world a better place together? And that makes me so optimistic. That and working, with people like you all, and the fact that this program is even happening, all of those things make me feel like we're going to work for a better future.
Really quickly, how would we define eco-anxiety and eco-grief?
So eco-anxiety is anxiety about the environment, and specifically anxiety about the future because of environmental damage. And then eco-grief is sort of a step further, sort of mourning for either the things that are already broken or gone, or mourning for the things that we know are going to be going. A lot of my students have a lot of grief about coral reefs, for example, because, we're in a school that has a marine science program. And a lot of them have a lot of grief about a future that they feel like they're being robbed of. And that is really hard to work through, and we all have to do it together. I actually take a whole day in my climate change communication class to go sit on the beach and talk through what we're scared of and what we're mourning and how we're going to pull through stronger on the other side. And it's really common in Gen Z and younger people now.
Yeah, you have that advantage of working with younger people who do have that excitement, and the challenge is keeping it there. Whereas when you work with older people, it's a little harder to get that energy and enthusiasm because they've kind of reached that point, well, I don't care because, I'm not going to be around to worry about it. It's like, do you have grandchildren? Do you have great-grandchildren? Trying to get that same level of energy and enthusiasm to where they're ready to make the changes, they're ready to work, they're ready to get out there and talk to people and try to make a difference, because I think a lot of people are saying we're quickly reaching that point of no return.
So if you had someone maybe with their head hung low, looking down, thinking, there's no way I can make a difference, what is something you would say to them?
Just go out there and do it, get involved. I started as a campaign volunteer for electoral politics. Here I am, I'm an organizer. And, I'm proud of the work that I'm doing, that I've done so far. So don't think that you're powerless. Something that I always tell people from the communities that I work in is, like, they're not the government, you're the government. You hire them to work for you and represent you. So that's always my message, get involved.
I love that. We're always telling people to get outside and just enjoy these places, but also take somebody with them or tell somebody else about it, right? So that they will share in that enjoyment. But I think there are also some really specific things that people can do that are pretty easy relatively. One is you can support Florida agriculture when you eat. And so, buying local, we have a Fresh from Florida label, and that's something that everyone can do anywhere in the state. And then I also encourage people to try and plant natives. And so, take out your lawn if you can and replace it with native species, our birds and other small wildlife in your own backyard.
I think it's easy for people to feel overwhelmed because they see it as such a big picture problem. And if you just encourage people that if enough people care and do just a little bit, talk to everybody, do little things. If you talk about using cloth napkins instead of paper napkins or washable dishes instead of paper, then other people think, oh, yeah, I can do that. That's not that big a deal. So if we just look at the little things, it's not so overwhelming to people.
What I like about your answer is that it's not change to the cloth napkins. It's tell everybody to change to the cloth napkins too, because you're doing the one thing is not as awesome as everybody you know doing it because you talked about it.
Yeah.
So you all have a multifaceted approach to addressing the climate issues that we face today, and I'm walking away from this inspired with some actionable next steps, some things that I need to be doing too. So thank you all for sharing your perspective on all this.
Thank you.
Thank you.